Welcome everyone. We're gonna show a quick video and then we'll get started. Um,
Welcome to today's session, everyone.
We are PreMedCC, a student-led organization established in the fall of 2021.
Our goal as an organization was to create an online program for pre-medical students at community colleges and universities, with the hope of guiding the next generation of diverse and inclusive physicians.
And while we advertise our organization as being for community college students, our events are open to anyone.
We realize that finding guidance and mentorship in a pre-med journey can be especially challenging for first-generation pre-med students,
people that lack the financial resources, or just those who do not know people in the medical field.
One of the best parts about our events is that they are virtual, so you can do it from the comfort of your own home.
We typically have events on Fridays from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 12:30 Pacific Standard Time.
If you aren't able to attend the event, all of our sessions are uploaded on our YouTube channel.
Many of our sessions will end up with a Q&A with the speakers.
Any questions that you have, you may put it in the Q&A session on Zoom, and our team members will read them and have them answer.
After you have attended our event, you can log into our website and complete the quiz, which will contain questions pertaining to our session today.
If you score 70% or higher on the quiz, you will be awarded a certificate to show that you attended our session today.
If you want to stay connected with the upcoming events or just want to tell your pre-med friends about the PreMedCC, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as @PreMedCC.
Alrighty.
Welcome, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Kiarash. Kiarash is a fourth-year cancer biology PhD candidate from Stanford University School of Medicine. He grew up in Iran, where he finished high school and moved to San Jose, California in 2012. Kiarash attended West Valley Community College, majoring in biology and chemistry before transferring to UC Berkeley to receive a BA in molecular and cell biology and a minor in education. For his undergraduate honors thesis work is on toll-like receptors, expression patterns. He received the department's award in cell and developmental biology. Kiarash spent 2 years studying the neural basis of perception at UC Berkeley as a research associate before starting his PhD at Stanford in 2019, where he is now studying neuron glioma interactions at a circuit level. Everyone, please help me welcome Kiarash. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Thanks so much, Evan. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you guys this afternoon. Sorry if my internet goes in and out. I'm monitoring it, but you would think Stanford has better internet, but our Wi-Fi is not that good here. But yeah, let me share my screen. I made a little presentation to just go over my journey from community college to where I am right now. You guys can see my screen. So yeah, as Veronica mentioned, I'm Kiarash. I'm a fourth-year cancer biology PhD student here in Stanford School of Medicine. And I started from West Valley Community College, which is a community college here. Actually, a half an hour drive down from here in Stanford in Saratoga, California. But yeah, so I started from West Valley College. I started there in 2013. I was there for 2 years. I majored in biology and chemistry. I got 2 associate's degrees before transferring. And yeah, now I'm in Stanford, a fourth year cancer biology PhD student. So I started here in 2019. After West Valley, I transferred to Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and I was there for 2 years to major in MCB, molecular cell biology, and kind of relevant to PreMedCC's theme. I was PreMed. And I'm still going to med school after after my PhD is done. And and after I was in Berkeley for 2 years and graduated, I worked there for 2 years as a lab tech, because you kind of need that these days to get into these top schools, either for MD or PhD or MD PhD. So I worked for 2 years, and I will get into these. And life is not linear like this. It has its ups and downs. I've definitely had harder times sometimes in passing classes and like going through things in West Valley than I have here in Stanford. Nice thing about med school and grad school, if you do a PhD or MD and PhD classes are pass, no pass. So you don't have to worry about getting an A, or you don't have to really worry about the GPA. So let me get started with like where I started from. So I was born in Iran. I finished high school in Iran. In Iran, I was also like interested in biology and really enjoyed like biomedical studying about biomedical research. Couldn't do any biomedical research, and you can see like we did like a little anatomy class things, rats intestine. That's why it's so long. And this is me in high school. But yeah, so I finished high school in Iran, and then moved to the US, and I moved to San Jose, here in the Bay Area in California, and enrolled in a community college, in West Valley Community College, because when you immigrate, like, I haven't taken the SATs or any of those things, so I couldn't apply to a 4-year school, and I didn't really speak much English, so I needed to go somewhere to learn the language and get acclimated into taking classes. So I started in 2013 in the West Valley College, and I was doing, when I first started, I was doing mostly my Janet classes, and then ended up doing a major in biology and chemistry, and I was in the honors track. It helped you. I don't know if it's still the case, but transferring to a 4-year college, I think UCLA had like an advantage. If you were doing the honors track and you were in that honors cohort, you would take some extra classes. And while I was in West Valley, I was working part-time in work study. It was nothing research or fancy. I was just doing some office work. And while I was in West Valley, because I knew I wanted to end up in medical research in the medical field, I was volunteering at Stanford Hospital, at the Stanford Hospital here. And I spent like 6 months here, coming and going back and forth from San Jose to here. And at the end of my 2 years, I applied to 4 UCs: UCLA, UC Berkeley, San Diego, and UC Davis. I think they still do that. There was this thing called transfer admission guarantee that for some UCs, not all UCs have it. And if you took some specific classes, they would guarantee you a spot, because when I was in community college, I was like, there's so many of us here and not that many spots in like the 4-year schools that I wanted to go to. So the transfer thing was always like, I'm still like, when I think about it, I was like more stressed and panicked back then thinking about transfer. And now I'm at Stanford, even like when I was interviewing for PhDs, like I didn't have that much stress. When I was in West Valley, I tried to find research positions to do research, but honestly, I couldn't find any. Back then, there were not that many programs that would connect you to students at four-year universities, but now here at Stanford, I'm part of this program that like we mentor community college students. It's mostly Foothill Community College, like here in California, here in near Palo Alto area here. But now that I think there are many of these programs that you can work with like PhD students in these four-year universities, so you can gain some research experience. And you also, when I was in community college, you don't really learn. They don't teach you how to write like your personal statement and all those things you need to write for applications. Here we do it a lot, so I had to learn it the hard way, and like there are a lot of errors and mistakes. And but anyways, made it. And my GPA when I graduated community college was 4.0 because it was easy. The 4.0 doesn't stay when you go to four-year school. And then, yeah, I got offered the Regent Scholarship at UCLA, but then I also got offered a different scholarship at UC Berkeley. So at the end, it would have been free in both of these schools. So I chose Berkeley because it was closer because my family's here, and also it was, I think they were ranked better in our major, molecular cell bio. And since when I was in West Valley, I always wanted to come to Stanford. Even when I was in West Valley, like transferring, you can apply to private universities too, but it's like very unlikely to get in. But I still did it. I applied to Stanford, obviously didn't get it. This is me in 2013 when I was a community college student in front of Stanford's. This is our memorial church. This is a main campus building, like in the main quad, like the main part of the campus. But yeah, so it was me back then hoping one day I would be at Stanford, and now I get to walk in front of this memorial church pretty much every day to go home. Oh yeah, and I told you my GPA was 4.0, but like my transcript wasn't like flawless. Like there was this writing lab in the summer that it was a co-requisite of some English class, and I had to work, so I couldn't really go to the class. I'd never showed up to the class, and obviously you can see if you don't show up to class, you get a no pass. So I kind of failed that class, but still, it was a pass no pass. It didn't really affect the GPA. But I want to say, like when you're applying to colleges and applying to transfer, like they look at the holistic application, and it's not just about your scores and your majors. It's about you and who you are as a student, and how likely you are to succeed in their school. I haven't been a part of the undergrad admissions, but I've been part of PhD admissions committee, and I know like we just don't look at scores and like scholarships and stuff. There's way more that we look into when we're choosing PhD students, at least. So yeah, then I went to UC Berkeley. I majored in molecular and cell biology. This was like kind of like the pre-med major. All of the pre-meds would do this major. It was this one or just biology. I think called it IB, integrative biology. I was doing that, and I was always interested in like mentoring other students and helping others. So I did a minor in education, so somebody teaches me how to mentor somebody, like get some formal training in it. And it was nice, like through that, like I could teach some elementary and like middle school classes. It was kind of like required for our degree because you have to show you can teach. And that was my minor. And one nice thing about UC Berkeley, I don't know if other UCs have it, but plug for UC Berkeley, they let you teach your own class. You can design these classes. They're called decals. It's like democratic education at Cal. You can design whatever you want. Some people design like more artsy, like creative things. I was the boring guy. I designed the class like in human genetics. And we were teaching that class with my friend. And we taught it for like 2 full semesters. So it was like a full year, and we had like 30 students every semester. So like I got to teach like a 60 undergrads, like my classmates. You could do these if you were junior and senior. So like the students usually were younger than you, so you could learn how to command the classroom and be in charge. While I was in Berkeley, I was also working. because California is expensive. You gotta work to be able to afford being a student. The scholarships and everything was covering all the school fees, but like I had to make some money to be able to live. And fortunately, like for my work study, I was able to get a job in a lab, and I was doing experiments, which was nice. This is Greg Barton, my undergrad professor, my PI. I started working at his lab as a part-time like work study student, but then the postdoctoral fellow that I was working with, she offered me my own if I wanted to start my own project, and I started my own project, and that was my honors thesis. And I was also helping her with her project, and that's how I did my honors thesis, and I got my department's award for my honors thesis, and got some publications. And lab is fun if you're or get to do research. Lab is fun. We were an immunology lab, so here's like if you've done immunology, you know, like get like mouse anti whatever. This is us being anti each other. This is like antibodies, and our PI, because all he did was the main job of the PIs is to raise money. He's just a human for raising money. But yeah, labs are fun. I enjoy labs, and you can see lying nights. That's a lot of pipette tips. And this is what I worked for 2 years on it. Was my paper with my postdoc. You can see I'm the second author on the paper. It was in cells immunity, and the cover picture is actually a microscopy image I took, and we got the cover of that issue of the journal, which was very interesting. I never thought one of the many microscopy pictures I've done ends up on a cover of a journal, but yeah, here it is. This is like just FYI, this is the small intestine. This is the lining of the small intestine. These are like the little villi that we have in our intestine that allows us to absorb nutrients. And the reds, I forget what they were, but they were like some immune cells. And you can see how the lining of the stomach is, the small intestine is. Yeah, so after Berkeley, graduating from Berkeley, I stayed in Berkeley and worked for another 2 years to gain more research experience and hone in my skills and get ready for grad school. So I worked for 2 years as SRA, staff research associate, and also coming out of undergrad, I was pretty broke, so I needed some way to stabilize my life before moving to the next stage. So I worked for 2 years, got a lot of good rec letters, and did some science and got 3 publications out of it. This one really came on like 6 months after I started working, so it was pretty nice to be able to work. And I changed fields. Like my undergrad was like immunology, then I jumped into neuroscience because I wanted to see. I really liked immunology. I didn't know if I would like. You don't know if you like something unless you try it. So I wanted to try something else, and so I jumped into neuroscience. The exact, not opposite, but like there's no overlap pretty much between these two fields. And now the lab I work in, we do a lot of neuroimmunology. So I learned that there's a lot of overlap between these two things. But like back then, I thought there was not much of an overlap. I was trying to diversify my set of skills. So I was in Berkeley for 2 years working there, and then I applied to grad school. I applied to 7 programs. I think I got them all: Stanford, Harvard, MIT, CSF, Yale, NYU. This is Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City. I got 7 interviews. I got 6 offers. Somehow Yale was the only one that didn't want me. The rest of them offered me a position. And I really wanted to stay in the Bay Area. And I really liked the program at Stanford for many reasons. And here's my admissions offer letter. I had to dig it down in my email. I used to have this printed when I got into Stanford, but somehow I got lost in my emails, and I found it for this presentation. So this is my offer letter for my Stanford. And Stanford is one of the schools that does white coat ceremony for PhDs too. So we got to have a little white coat ceremony. And since then, I've been working in the lab here. And my field right now is cancer neuroscience. So it's neuroscience, cancer biology, and it's like an intersection of cancer neuroscience and like immunology. And I'm in a pediatric neuro-oncology lab. We work with pediatric patients with brain tumors, and we are trying to better understand these tumors, because like pediatric tumors are usually way worse than adult tumors, and pediatric brain tumors are the leading cause of death among like children with cancer, because pretty much it's universally lethal if it's high grade, I think. Yeah, and if you're interested in research is a lot of fun. Research has a lot of its ups and downs. Like we were doing sequencing experiment. These are very long days, like 14, 15-hour day. And that's not what you want to see at the end of your day. This machine tells you it failed and like it's not going to run. And now you have to stay late and figure it out. But this is me trying, hoping my the fix I did fix it. And like there's a little timer here. You would see like it's 9 p.m. And finally it worked. So it started running. So more of the story is like, don't give up, especially if you're thinking about going for the research route, because you're gonna hit a lot of walls, and that's the spirit of research. You're gonna try as many times that it takes until we find a solution. So that's been the research. Yeah, and I wanted to just end a little bit of my presentation and a little bit of advice is that always like seek advice and mentorship, because when you look at like what you want to do, it's like a lot of question marks and looks very intimidating, and that's like you think the activation energy to borrow from chemistry is high for something you want to do, and honestly most cases it's not. You just don't know what you exactly need, and in your head you would think like, oh my god, I need to do all these things, and that's so much work, but usually it's not. So ask people who've done it before. People are usually happy to share their application, their experience like with you, so you can see how it's done and you can write your own story. And always follow your passion. I always thought I wanted to be in med school, and then I was like, no, research is more fun. That's like when I was a lab tech, like I really had fun those 2 years, and like it changed my mind and went to research. And now I'm at Stanford. I do a lot of medical research. So I go to clinic. I see sometimes with my advisor, and we see patients and we work with patient samples. And then we realized like, now I had a realization that I really like the research, but I like medical research. So after this, I'm gonna go to med school. I feel like if I applied right after out of undergrad, I was just doing it because I was born in a Persian family, and our parents always force us to be, not force us, but they kind of want you to be doctors or dentists or a lawyer. My sister's in UCSF dental school, so she gave it. She's gonna be a dentist. Now I know the reason I'm going to medical school is to help cancer patients, and I see the value on the clinical side. Before that, it was just I wanted to be a doctor, and now it's like I know exactly what I want to do specialty in. I know I want to do oncology and everything. So always follow your passion. Look for new opportunities. Back then, like when I was in community college, I thought like a lot of these things, I didn't apply to many things because I thought like I'm not gonna get it. But usually the best way not to get something is not to apply for it. If you don't, you definitely won't get it.
Yeah, 100% rejection rate if you don't apply. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So you should try to apply for things that you're interested in, seek out opportunities. Like sometimes you think there are not that many opportunities out there, but if you search or ask people, I'm sure if you ask an advisor or a friend that's a little ahead of you, they might, they definitely know things that they can connect you to. And yeah, when I was in community college, I didn't do any research because I thought there was none out there. And now I'm a grad student, I'm mentoring. I'm not doing it this quarter because I was busy, but like last quarter I was doing it, and the quarter before, and like mentoring community college students. I'm sure there are other programs out there for different community colleges that you can work with graduate students and medical students to get some research experience. And one prerequisite, I guess one other thing besides applying to things is that you got to work hard. Like when you get into, if you accept an offer to do research or something, don't quit. You should. Life is hard. You're gonna fail many times. That's what you first thing you learn in grad school. Like you're gonna fail. Most of what you do is failing. Like 90% of what you do is failing. That 10% that works is what you publish in, file a patent on, and someday becomes a company or a drug, or some becomes a base for the foundation for somebody else's work. And Obama kind of like put it very greatly, like you can't let your failures define you. You have to let your failures just to teach you. Just learn from your failures. Don't be scared of them. And yeah, that last thing is like submit that application. Usually, like we have a lot of, I had like a bunch of drafts of things and I never did it, or I would get emails and I would like put a note to do this. I'm gonna apply for this, and never submitted it because it was never perfect. Unless it's one of those things that you can apply for once, you get one shot. That there are not that many of those around. Usually you can reapply. So just if there's something you're interested in, spend as much time as you can on the application, but don't be scared of like your application getting rejected. Don't take it personal. Just submit an application, and yeah. And along the way, don't forget where you came from, and help your peers. And like once you're more of a senior student, help the more junior students and walk them through your experience. Usually when you're helping somebody else, it's also helping you because it forces you to reconcile everything that you thought like you were doing in your brain, and like it solidifies it and you can move on. Especially like I found that really good, in especially like in studying. Like if you can teach somebody, that's when you know the subject. Yeah, that's pretty much all. I didn't want to make it a class PowerPoint, so I wanted to be brief. That's all I had. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and happy to answer questions.
So we have a couple of questions. Jessica and Veronica are going to take turns asking you questions.
Yeah, I have a question to get us started. How did you know that you were ready to pursue a PhD? Like, what experiences or how did you mentally prepare, to go pursue a PhD?
Yeah, so most of the main reason I applied for a PhD was my 2 years of work when I was a full-time research associate. Because when you're an undergrad doing research in the lab, you're there for like a few hours. And you don't see the full scale of things that's happening around you, and like what it takes to publish a paper, like how a lab runs. So but when you work as a full-time staff, you have to be in lab at least 40 hours a week. You get to have your own project, and that experience, that's actually like the main reason I went for that 2-year position, because I knew it would work. It kind of like gives me a taste of like how this and at the beginning I thought I was going to do it for 1 year because I was like, this is like a quick test. If I like the lab, I'll stay in the lab. If not, I would just take the MCAT and go for the med school because you have time throughout that year. And then I liked what I was doing, so I stayed another year, finished what I was doing, and then applied to grad school. And also, I would one other benefit of working is like if you're applying directly to grad school from undergrad, you're a senior, you're taking finals and having to go to interviews. And back then, pre-COVID, the schools would fly you to the school. So like they would pay for your flight and hotel and everything. But like I was gone because I applied to, I got some interviews. I was gone for 7 halves of the week. So all the interviews are usually Thursday and Friday. So I would like fly out Wednesday night, Thursday and Friday interview. Saturday, they usually have like some unofficial social stuff, and then you fly back Sunday. So I was gone like for 7 weeks back to back. And a lot of these like were like, I tried to space them out. So I have one West Coast interview and one East Coast. So I'm not flying every weekend. I'll fly every other weekend. But anyways, that was a long way of saying, yeah, I tried to do like a mini taster of research, which was working as a lab tech.
And just to be clarified, you do have to have a bachelor's degree to be a lab tech, right?
Yes, you need to have a bachelor's degree for most of them. Some of them, if you want to get involved with what is the right word, like real research, to be able to like get more responsibilities, you need a bachelor's degree. With the associate's degree, you usually end up doing a specific task. You're just gonna do PCRs like 24/7 for whatever you did. So you do this one task. But when you have a bachelor's degree, they let you take over like a project, and you have more options. Yeah.
The next question. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the next questions that came up was to provide us maybe with a little insight. You said they don't look at grades or GPA much when accepting PhD candidates. So what do they look at?
Yeah, so I would have to be general, because like they give, so when you're on the admissions committee, they give you like a list of specific things they're looking for, but those are like internal, private, confidential, whatever. But like in general, at least like Stanford Medical School's position is we want people who would succeed here at Stanford at a PhD, and a grade is only one of the indicators. And I have many great friends here that like my undergrad GPA from West Valley was like, from my community college was 4.0. At Berkeley, I think it was 3.97 or 8. So like I got like 1 A- somewhere. But like there are people here that have like a 3.4, 3.2 GPA from undergrad, and they're way better scientists than I am. So GPA is definitely not like a defining factor at all. They would want to see your recommendation letters, because your essay, you're writing it about yourself, but recommendation letter is something that somebody else is writing about you. It gives usually more insight to how an applicant's going to be. Your experiences, your research experience, your service, your teaching experience, if you taught something or if you volunteered somewhere, you helped when you were undergrad, if you're applying directly and you didn't work for 2 years, to be like, oh, I've done 4 years of research, 2 years part-time, 2 years full-time, and I have all these publications. Even a publication record, if you have any publications, that's great. If you don't, it's not a prerequisite at all. We have many of the incoming class usually don't have publications. Those are just things that like show that I know how to design a project, how to think critically, how to be in charge of my own project, and I know time management, and I can manage a project. Because like grad school, after your first year, when you're done with your rotations, you start doing you join a lab, and then you take over your project. You take your project, you start your own project, and that's what you work on. And you're pretty much independent. Nobody is checking on you really, and you better have something to show after 5 years. So yeah, so we all know that about grad school, and when we are choosing people, we want to choose people who have a proven record that they can succeed in this kind of an environment. They can be independent, think critically, and there are a lot of indicators about the, like, as I said, record publication record. Sometimes, like in the application, they ask you what is the most significant pending question, like what is the most important scientific discovery or something in your opinion, and like that short essay that you write kind of tells us how you're thinking about the problem. And yeah, so yeah, definitely not all about grades. Grades are, if like, you gotta show I can take classes and learn things, but you don't have to have a 4.0 or 2.8 GPA.
Thank you for that. Some people are asking about your GPA, and a person asked, what was your major in undergrad, and how did you get the 4.0 GPA? Does it need to, yeah, how did you get your 4.0 GPA?
So my major in community college was biology. I was double major, biology and chemistry. Actually, technically I was triple major, but like the other one was associates in liberal arts, and like when you did these two by default, you would qualify for the other one. So you would just put in the paperwork and get 3 diplomas. But I aimed for 2. Turned out I qualified for 3. So, and then when I went to Berkeley, my major was molecular and cell biology, and my minor was education. I tried to do a major in chemistry, but the chemistry department in Berkeley is very strict about the requirements. I was like, I'm not taking all these extra classes. Yeah, so how I got the 4.0 at community college. So I always try to make sure that I balance my semesters. So I won't take one semester of like all physics or chemistry, and like that's just a lot. I would like spread out my general education classes and my major classes, and also after I got better at designing, like assembling my class schedule, I would make sure to like have some classes that are more based on memorization, some classes that are more based on like it was massive physics. Like I will always mix some biology and physics. You don't want to have 2 back-to-back physical, like chemistry and like quantum physics finals. Our brain has some limits. You don't want too many memorization classes. You don't want your physiology back-to-back with anatomy. That's just a lot of memorization. I'll also try to mix some classes that were like project-based. Like my minor education specifically, like that was a lot of like projects and writings. Like you would write an essay. Your finals week, you really didn't have a final because you could write your paper ahead of time and submit it the week before the final. So I tried to balance things so it make it easier on me. And usually, and one random thing that becomes very critical is like you don't want to have 2 finals in one day if you can avoid it. So when you're taking classes, look at the final schedule too. I made that mistake my first year in West Valley. Took some classes that I was like, the schedule looks nice and everything, but it turns out like I had 3 finals. I had 4 classes my first quarter and 3 of the finals in one day. So I ran out of a chemistry test final to get to a physics one to leave for I think it was a sociology or something. So it was you don't want to do that because at least in community college, your final has a lot of weight for your grades. In UC Berkeley, like our final was like the last midterm kind of type of thing. They were like the same weight, so it wasn't as critical. But yeah, try to take classes you enjoy. Like usually your major lets you pick some electives. They give you a list. Hopefully you like some classes on that list because that's your major. Hopefully you like your major. And gen ed, like usually you have a lot of like options. You don't like sociology, take psychology, take music, whatever they let you on that list. Find something that you enjoy learning about. It makes it less painful for that finals night. You're studying for the final. Yeah, and always make sure. One last thing I would add is to communicate with your professor. Like, they're human; they're not there to fail you. Most of majority, 99% of them want you to succeed. Yeah, usually, like, universities have a very rigorous hiring process. They don't hire psychos. They want to fail you. So if you're struggling, if it's hard, like, go to them, like, talk to them, talk to the TA. Usually at a four-year college, you have a bunch of TAs. Community college usually didn't have them, but you have smaller classes. Talk to your professor. Usually there's some tutoring service at community colleges. If you're struggling, ask them for help. And your friends are always usually there for you, so they would help you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And yeah, and that's why you have 3 weeks usually to drop a class. Like, if one semester you're not sure, take one extra class, and two of them, after 2 weeks, you will figure out, I'm gonna go for this one. Usually you can't do that. Like, in Berkeley, we couldn't do that because Berkeley classes fill up so fast. So it was kind of impossible to do. But like in community college, you usually can't do that. You have like a grace period, I think a couple of weeks to figure out what you like. That's like more of a strategical approach if you're in doubt.
The next question that came up was, I'm currently a first-year biological science major, and I just want to know what would be the best type of extracurriculars or volunteering opportunities I should focus on before transferring.
Okay. Did they say if they're pre-med or they want to go for grad school? Because I can, I guess, cover both, because I was kind of both. So if you're pre-med, definitely while you're in community college, do the hospital volunteering hours. Four-year university is way more work, and you don't have time as much. And there's so many more opportunities, like student clubs and different activities you can do to add to your resume. So the hospital or volunteering or the shadowing, definitely, if you can, do it. When you're in community college, especially like during summer, you're taking a summer class, you have other more time on your hand. If you can, and if you can, and especially like if you're interested in research, you should go seek out some research opportunities. I didn't as a community college student because I didn't know you could do that, but don't be shy. You can always like find people at a four-year college near you. Like, I was near Stanford and UC Berkeley. I could have emailed them. Some professors look them up like that. They have a lab and say, I'm interested in your work. This is what I'm interested in. I'm in community college. I'll be happy to help with whatever project is ongoing in your lab. And if they have they need somebody, they would say yes. And you get to do research. If you also, nowadays, I think it's a newer. Back then, I know I looked for it. We didn't have any of these programs, but some community colleges have these programs that connect you to grad students and like labs at universities. So you can go definitely apply to those.
I also put the Stanford
Oh,
summer. There's some Stanford summer programs you could also do, and I put that in the link as well. There's put that in the link as well too. The other thing is I want to give Dr. Shamardani a little bit of credit. He studied in Iran, and I know that Iran's educational system, if you graduate with a high school degree in Iran, and just knowing the rigors of those. So you're in terms of math and sciences, you've probably complete, like, I know, like, you complete calculus and stuff. And I think for you though, the credit is you had to adjust to the English language, which I think it's enormous, and being able to do all those, I think that's a testament to your hard work. But again, in terms of like sciences and things, like he was definitely more advanced, but he also didn't speak English, so you have to take those into account as well.
Yes, we do a lot of hardcore math and or chemistry and math. I think biology is usually depends on if you did AP Bio or whatever here. But yeah, so like the whole point that it made about strategic planning of the classes, like if you look at my West Valley transcript, I'm only taking English and math classes because I needed to work on learn English, but math doesn't require you to know the language. It's the same. You can just sit there and do the math. You don't have to understand the word the professor's saying. And if you look at my transcript, I finish all the math, then I go for physics because it's the next best thing that you don't have to understand the professor what they're saying that much. Then went for chemistry, and my biology is all my last 2 years at West Valley, because biology is one you need to read a lot and be able to understand what's being taught. So yeah, so you can find your strengths and weaknesses and mix them up. Like, don't take all the classes that you know you're gonna ace at once, because that's an easy semester, but that means you're gonna pay for it later. Don't be that guy that says this is future me's problem. That future me someday is gonna be you. You can't escape it. So just plan it out.
Yeah, I know someone who is taking third semester physics, linear differential equation, and OChem their last semester, and I was like, good luck to you.
Well, yes. Yeah, you don't want to mix OChem with it. Like, so some people are okay with OChem. Like, organic chemistry was like the hardest class. The second semester organic chemistry I took at West Valley at my community college, to this day, is the hardest class I've passed. I'm like, I've been through like 2 years of UC Berkeley. I've been through grad school classes. That class still haunts me in my nightmares. Sometimes I still have like nightmares. I'm like, oh my God, like still remember one final question I couldn't figure out. Anyways, good thing about like sometimes hard classes is that they grade on a curve. So everybody's gonna screw up the test. So you're gonna all get A's, and not everybody's gonna fail. Everybody's not going to get an A, but like your 60% is like an A. Anyways, and yeah, and back to that question as for activities, yeah, they're like these Stanford summer research programs like we have here at Stanford. I'm sure Berkeley has them. I'm sure Berkeley has probably more. They're more active in that area. Also, they're a state school, so they have like a mandate to do those. And yeah, and sometimes you can even get like work study positions in your community colleges, like labs. I know it's not research, but like you, at least like my work study, I was in the admissions office, so just dealing with transcripts and applications. So my work really didn't contribute until I went to UC Berkeley. Then my work was in a lab. If you can find those positions, especially like if you're interested in biology, our biology lab at West Valley had, I think, some students that were helping set up the experiments, and you still get lab experience. And when you're applying for research positions, you can be like, I know these techniques, and it's nice, you got paid for it. So
yeah, all the community colleges have that, and you could also do them as federal work study. So and like ask them, because now, I mean, you make them above minimum wage, but you could also use it for federal work study. But ultimately, you get to work with some of the faculty, lab techs, and they're really good people to get letters and other things as well. and those are all available to everybody. And also tutoring. I mean, I think I
Oh yes.
tutor UC Berkeley calculus students, and I go to a community college, and I mean I do it privately, and I make good money. But you also, like, I remember Taylor series, like when I studied them, I just studied them to pass the test, but then explaining it to someone, like I probably spend more time learning it, trying to teach someone else than actually learned it myself. So certainly, like, and I also did it for chemistry too. You definitely get better at it when you're studying yourself. When you have to teach someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. So yeah, I worked as a tutor one semester when I was in West Valley. Then I got busy and couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, I did the tutoring. I was a math tutor. So yeah, definitely that's like a really good job. Like you're getting paid, you're adding something to your resume, you make good connections with the professors because usually there's somebody who's in charge of the tutoring service for each branch of it, like math, physics, whatever. So you get to build relationships with them and get a recommendation letter. And also it really solidifies like your knowledge when you're teaching someone else. So yeah, thanks Jimmy for bringing that up. I totally forgot that. I did it my first year because there was a lot of Iranians that go to West Valley, so I didn't need to speak that much English to be able to tutor people. And I was good in math, so I could teach like the Persian speaking, the Farsi speaking folks in West Valley math. So that's what I did. And yeah.
For those who don't have research experience or have like very little amount or can't get research experience, what other experiences would you recommend to prepare them for graduate school?
So for grad school, for grad school, you definitely would go to a four-year university before applying to grad school. Usually, all pretty much four-year schools would allow you some research experience. Like, so you have to take classes that have lab. So that's something. And some of these classes, the lab is pretty hardcore and hard to do. So that's something. But usually you would have access either in your university or in a different university. Like my sister also went to UC Berkeley, and she was doing research at UCSF. She was taking the train like BART, crossing the bay to the other side. It was like a 40-minute commute for her. But like you can always find like a research opportunity at your university or a close by university to do. If you couldn't do any of it, if you're applying to grad school, they would want to see you have tried research. Otherwise, they have no way of knowing like if you would stay or you're gonna quit a year into it. Because you think about it from the view of the admissions committee, like when they are offering you a position, each grad student on average, I think it costs like Stanford $80,000-$90,000 a year. And it's guaranteed for until you graduate. So this is a huge investment by the university and its faculty. Money-wise, time-wise, resource-wise, so they want to see somebody because if you start a PhD and drop off after 3 years, that's like $250K of their money gone, with nothing to show for it. Schools want to see that you are able to succeed, and one of the main ways to see that is that you have some experience doing it, so you know what you're signing up for. And it's the same thing with med school. Like that's the reason they want to see you shadow the physician, you volunteer. They're not doing it because they're sick and they want to waste your time or like force you to be a better human by helping the community. Like that's something you should want to do. They don't want to force you to do it. They want to see that you know what it's in to be in the hospital setting. It's not like Grey's Anatomy every year a new case, or every new case is going to roll through the door every time. Most of it is routine. A lot of it is like taking notes to make sure the patient's charts are complete. A lot of it is like writing pre-authorizations for the insurance and all those things. So a lot of medicine is a lot of writing. Not everybody's a surgeon. You're not going to cut people open just for the fun of it. Surgeries are very restricted. Like being in the OR, once you're there in person, is not as fun as they show in the movies. You're running all this stuff and you can touch anything, you're sweating and okay. Anyways, so the point is like they want to see you know what you're signing up for. And the only way you can show that is that you show that I've done it before and I know I'm making an informed decision. So I would suggest try to get a research experience as a lab. If you can't get it as an undergrad, if your major is relevant, you would be able to apply to research positions, either in a university, being a lab tech, or being a research associate at a pharmaceutical company. If you're in the Bay Area or like from the Boston area, there's like all these biopharma companies. So and they always want somebody to help them. There's so many positions. You go to LinkedIn, you would see a ton of these. And if you have no experience, you obviously would start from a beginner position, like entry level position, and then after a year, you can apply internally and go up the chain of research positions. And yeah, so there are many options. I don't think you would ever be left without an option to do research if you're interested in. You would either do it in your university or after that as work.
Yeah, so in November, we brought the director of intramural training at NIH, and she talked about all these various programs. That I know of, the 3 people that were on that session all got summer research programs at NIH, and those are all paid. You know, with like housing and stipend and everything. So there's a lot of programs out there, and we post a lot of stuff as well. So there's summer programs and post-bac. I mean, NIH has this post-bac program where you go, I think for 1 year or 2 year, and you do research at NIH, and boy, you get like the best exposure to research there. And so there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, you know, if you can't get hired at Berkeley, you know, if you're not smart enough or something like me, but there's a lot of places, there's a lot of opportunities. You got to try. If you don't try, you're not going to get it. So there's a lot of programs out there. I know one person that I just recently spoke to. She was a freshman in college and going to community college, and she applied, I think, to 12 programs, and she got rejected from 11 of them, but she got that one program and she's going to it. And so you're not going to be able to, and it's a research program. And so you gotta try, you gotta try and fail. So.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, those post-bac programs are really great. NIH has them. And one of my friends actually here at Stanford, she did 2 years of that at NIH before she came to Stanford, and it's paid. Stanford, some of these like universities also have post-bac programs. Like I think Stanford has one for like biochemistry or like chemistry, and that's also paid. Yeah, but the NIH post-bac one is really huge. Like there's usually a lot of positions, and you get to directly work at the heart of NIH.
One of the questions that came up was, did you feel community college was very unsociable, and only when moving to a 4-year university you got a chance to be involved more? Or was it the other way around?
So so I guess my experience would be a little biased because at the beginning I couldn't really speak that much English. So like I was limited to to some degree of how much interactions I had outside of class. But I think my experience, I think, has been 4-year schools. There are more opportunities, and I think there are even more students, and the students, like everybody's a full-time student. So you see all these people all the time. There are more student activities, all these student clubs. There's more money that they have, so they can afford to have a lot of student clubs that have money to do activities. And I don't know, and there are different varieties of programs you can do there. Like you can teach a class, like I did. You can run a student organization. You can do, you can mentor high school students. You can do whatever. There's a lot of different programs. Community college, their budget, their mandate is different. The way the state allocates the budget is also very different. They are more about like teaching you the skills and what you need to move on. The four-year universities, they are there for that undergrad experience. I guess we had less of it as a transfer student because we were just there for 2 years in Berkeley. But like here in Stanford, I get the emails from the Stanford president that goes to all the universities, and like I talk to the Stanford undergrad, and they have like a whole different, like they are here more for the Stanford experience, like taking classes. So obviously, like there's that, like at least that was like my experience. Like, yeah, there's more opportunities in a four-year college university than community college, but doesn't mean that there's nothing to do in community college. There's still organization, student organization. There's still the student government if you're into that. Usually there's everything you have at a four-year college and a community college. It's just at a smaller scale because usually community colleges are much smaller than a UC. For example, they have less budget, but if you're looking for something, you can find them, and you don't have to specifically, like when you're in community college, like stay there for everything you're doing. Like you can do research outside of there, you can do a lot of other activities outside your community college, and just use that status as a student. A lot of like things you can do just requires you to be a student. You don't have to be specifically the student of that organization, that institution. So you can do a lot of those. I didn't do them because I couldn't really speak English. But and then my second year at Misala, I was just trying to put my application together and those things. But yeah, those also, I would encourage you to do those extracurricular activities because it will enrich your resume. Anything you can do to show I'm more than somebody who can just do some. I'm more than a calculator that has a good RAM. I can no more. That's like I'm more than like adding and subtracting numbers and memorizing things.
Someone asked, what is the best way to prepare for an MD PhD program interview, and what questions should they ask a potential PI?
Yeah, so MD PhDs, the MD PhD process is kind of like a hybrid of MD and PhD. It's mostly mostly follows the MD route. So when you apply for MSDP programs, medical scientist training programs, MSDP programs, you obviously apply to MCAS, like the medical college admission system, and you apply to primarily the MD program. And if they want you for the MD PhD program, they would invite you for first, like usually like the MD interview, and it depends on the school. Some schools do it differently, but usually like you. But if they want you for the MD PhD program, they invite you for the MD PhD program. If they don't want you for the PhD part, they will give you an MD offer. They will never give you a PhD offer. So you either get MD or the MD PhD you wanted, you asked for. And then when you interview, there's going to be the MMI, the multiple mini interviews setting for the medical school. That's like, they want to see you're going to be a physician. Like you're going to do everything that the other MD applicants are doing, because they want to know you're going to be at the same level as the other MDs. On the PhD side, when you're interviewing for the MD, when you're done with all of that, now they schedule you some interviews with some faculty, and that's kind of like a faster PhD application a PhD interview, and each person has their own style. Like my experience interviewing for the PhD side of it was, because usually school gives you 5 to like 9 people to interview, faculty to interview with. MSTP probably you will get like 3 to 4 because you're also doing the MD interviews. And what they ask you usually is like, the first question is always tell me about yourself. Make sure you have like an elevator pitch for 2 minutes, everything you've done that you want them to know before they get tired and start forgetting what you were telling them. So you want that. And then usually it just develops naturally from there. They ask you, okay, you did this research, how did it go? Or why did you do this? Or sometimes you can tell them about like, I did this and it failed, and they ask you what you learned from that. And always like, and also one thing, when you're interviewing, don't always be the person just like answering questions. Don't make it one-sided that they are asking you a question and you're just answering. Try to look them up beforehand, know what they work on, ask them a question. Doesn't have to be sophisticated or like super fancy. Just ask them a question. There's no dumb question. In science, we do very specific things, and we don't expect people to know that specific thing. But like when people ask you something that is kind of like in the same realm as what you do, like it would start a conversation and you can go down from there. And also it allows them to see that you can think critically, because when you're just answering a question, unless you're asking you really targeted hard questions, like you're usually just like going from memory and what you've done. But when you're asking questions about somebody else's work, that's when you have to be really engaged in that conversation and being able to also it shows that you care about them. People like nobody would think you're a stalker. Like they respect that, like that you asked them a question, like you look them up, you put in the time to ask them, to learn about them and ask them intelligent questions. So yeah, the interviews in summary is going to be like a mashup of MD and PhD, grad school to PhD interview, but mostly follows the MD style and timeline, because that is more, because PhDs usually happen later in the cycle. Like we apply for PhD usually in like November, December, but MD you have to submit your application. I think June 1st. Hopefully it's still June. I think it's still June 1st.
Yeah.
And then your secondaries, it's summer. So you go with the MD timeline.
Yeah, you have to get the MD before the PhD part. Yeah. That's the harder part.
Yes. The PhD part is kind of like, do we have money to get you for the PhD part? They're gonna like rank up like all the MD PhD applicants and be like, okay, this is how many we can afford this year. These are the top whatever that we have to draw the line, and they would take you. Because MD PhD is a huge investment by the university. They have to pay, not only pay for your med school and PhD, they have to also pay you because you're eligible for a stipend, and MD PhD is usually 8 to 9 years. 7 to 9 years. Nobody finishes in 7 unless you're like a superhero or something. Like you're pretty good at the science part, and that's if you think about it, like that's a lot of money that the school has to invest in one student. Like usually 600 to 800K for this one student.
We have a question that came up. Someone in this predicament, they're currently in community college, and their college offers lab tech programs, but they are also interested in research, and they want to know what would you suggest? Is it better to focus on clearing the prerequisites for like a research program, or attend the program to get like that research kind of experience? What would you recommend?
So, that's an interesting situation. I think
I think the med tech thing is that for people to work in like processing labs, whereas what Dr. Shamardani has done is doing the research. So you're not doing, you're creating that process. I think that's Can you clarify that, please? Whoever asked that question, because
Yeah,
I
is it like a
think,
pathology type lab tech?
yeah, I think medtech lab are the people that do like the processing lab part, like processing like Genentech when they're processed like
Oh,
drugs
okay.
and
So
stuff.
they just do the intake and like the
Yeah,
prep
it's
the
not a
samples for
clinical
the
lab specialist.
scientists. Yeah.
Yeah, because clinical lab specialist, you have to get a bachelor's degree and do a 1-year program. But I think it's a med tech lab is just like a processing lab. Like you process, I don't know, process like clean. I guess I could ask that. Yeah. So the lab tech problem is, okay. So around phlebotomy. So yeah, so you could be a phlebotomist and draw blood, but you're not like processing this. I mean, you prep them, but you can't run some of the tests because you have to be a clinical lab specialist. And I know that for a fact because I'm a phlebotomist and I'm a phlebotomist too. So I could do arterial blood and I could prep it, but I just can't run the machine. That has to be a clinical lab specialist for validation because those are clinical validation. What Dr. Shamardani did for 2 years in his lab was actually design the process, right? The processing of research.
Yes. So yeah, and usually anything medical, you need like a state license. Everything has a even for, I think like I know like the people who work in the labs here, they usually have a certificate and you have to get licensed by the state. Anything medical is very strictly like regulated, like usually mostly by the state and some by the FDA. So yeah, and your roles are very defined. Like you're gonna do one thing and do it many times. Very good. Because they want like a lot of things we do here in the research lab, you can do in the medical lab too, but like we do sequencing all the time. But when you do sequencing on a sample for pathology, you're doing the same process, but it's much more controlled so they can know for a fact that this is the right answer is standardized so the doctors can replicate it. Like on a mouse, we can do it multiple times, but like a human, you can't. The margin of error should be as minimal as you can. So yeah, usually if you go on the medical route of things, you're gonna get to do one thing and one thing, like a few things, but like do it very good. And that might probably look good if you're doing a medical field, but if you are interested in research in by any means, like if you're MD PhD or you want to do grad school, I would suggest like do a postdoc or like do a research position, like the lab tech I was in, we were staff research associates. You were pretty much like a graduate student who was just being paid and instead of getting credit for their work, like unit credits. You still get credit in the form of authorship, but yeah. So those usually give you more flexibility, and you get to do real like research and be involved with like, okay, I gotta make this decision. This is gonna fail. This is gonna not work. This is gonna work. How am I gonna design my experiment? And you have usually like in non-medical research and work more discretion and leeway to what you want to do. Usually, medicine is very descriptive, prescriptive about like how they want things done.
What quality or experience do you think made you a strong applicant when you were applying to a PhD program?
For me, I think it was mostly the publication record because I got lucky in my second, the 2 years I was working as a research associate. I got 3 publications out of that, and I had 1 publication from my undergraduate work, the one that I showed the cover photo from. So there were like 4 publications, and that's usually like on the higher end when you're starting grad school. Usually people you have one or they've been in the lab, don't have a publication yet. So mine was, I think, the publications first, and a second close was my research experience. Like about 2 years of full time and 2 years of like half time. I was in the lab like 20 hours a week when I was undergrad. So that's like 3 years of full time research experience and in 2 different fields. So that was kind of by design. As I told you, I wanted to try a different field. That way I show like, I'm good at research. I'm not just good at immunology. I can figure out like what is the problem, how to come up with a hypothesis, and how to design an experiment to test that hypothesis. Figure out what is the right question to ask, and some questions are right questions to ask, but you can't answer them. You're gonna know what's the answerable question. If you can answer it, you shouldn't ask the question. In science, usually, because we can't test it unless you're willing to develop a tool to do it. And some people do that. So yeah, mine was mostly, I think, the research experience and the publication, which is part of the research experience. I don't think the GPA hurts, but I think that was much of a factor compared to the other ones.
Thank you. Someone asked, I am from Egypt and I just finished high school in Egypt, and this is their first year in community college and in the US. They want to be a doctor and go to UCLA. How can they make their chances bigger to get accepted?
So yeah, so while you're in community college, as I said, like try to do the shadowing, the volunteer hours. Usually, I don't know what I don't know if California Medical Association has it, but like California Dental Association, I know my sister was doing it. Like they had like these events that they're like free community events that they help. They do free dental work on people, and I'm sure there's something like that through the California Medical Association too, that they at least like do checkups or something on people who don't have insurance. So if you can get involved with those and help with those, it's a good cause. It helps the community, and also you get to gain like first-hand like medical experience, because of what you want to show for medical school is that I know what the work entails and I'm willing to do it and I've done it. Here's my track record. So I think if you can get involved with those things, that would be nice. Obviously, try to take the classes that you need to for pre-med. And one major thing is transferring to UCLA or like UCs in general. Each UC has its own requirement. Don't be fixed on one UC. Obviously, when you're applying, you gotta at least like give yourself options, because like all or none usually is not a good choice. You want to have other options. It's great to have a top school in your mind, but like and aim for that. Like usually like UCLA and UC Berkeley, like these two usually make you do the hardest prerequisites before you can transfer. So if you're doing work for them, you're doing the work for UC Davis and I don't know, UC Santa Barbara or UC Santa Cruz or something. I would say like download. Back then it used to be a PDF. You have to literally go download this PDF and look what they require you to have done and what's recommended, and then match those, because they usually say like 1 year of general chemistry covering these topics, and then you had to look it up on your course catalog in your university, in your community college. But okay, this is gonna fulfill my requirements. I'm sure hopefully somebody has made some web portal now that you can be like, I want to go to this UC, this is my community college, does it qualify?
It's still a
You used to be to
PDF.
go-
It's a
still a
drop
PDF?
down. You have to drop down between school majors, years, and stuff. But it still comes out. But it lists them like one side to the other. So I mean, so yeah, it's still. I mean, assist.org is a great tool. It's been around for a long time. But
Oh yeah, we use that too. Yeah. but it's yeah, just make sure you're meeting the requirements, because you don't want to put in an application and you're missing one class. And if it's a required class, it doesn't matter what's in your application, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So make sure you're
even if they say
check it.
even if they say recommended, it's required.
Yes,
Because
for
everybody
UCLA,
else will
UC
do it.
Berkeley, these top ones, yeah, you have for these top ones definitely. For other schools, depends on your major. But yeah, if it's recommended, it's required. And if you're pre-med, look up, if you Google, like AAMC has a list of the classes each university requires and recommends, because their basic requirements for pre-med is like it's very basic, like a year of biology, year of organic chemistry and stuff like that. There's like 5-6 science requirements, I think. But each school has can impose its own requirements for medical school, and they can have recommended schools. And yes, exactly that. I'm gonna say, if you go there, you can look up the schools and their prerequisites and make sure you're meeting those prerequisites. If you can do them in community college, or you're finishing up at a 4-year university, make sure you have those recommended ones. Try to do them. Some schools like Stanford likes to make everything complicated. If you look up Stanford, at least like it was like that last year, everything's recommended, nothing's required, and you're like, do I have to take all these classes? And I asked around, and they were like, no, we want to see people we want to give people like flexibility, but we want to see people take a bunch of these things. So if some schools like being weird, like Stanford on that aspect, don't feel pressured that you have to take all of these. Usually there's some common sense classes that you have to have. But yeah, some schools are very clean, like the requisites, like take these required, these like 7 or 10, and these 4 are also recommended if you can take them. The more you match what they're asking for, the higher chance you have getting in. That's the coursework wise. And extracurricular activities, try to do as many things that show that you know how the medical field works. I don't know.
And I think this person that just been here from Egypt for a year, I think, like from what you said earlier, like learning English, both reading and writing is also a really important skill. And it may not be classes that you take, but just reading and being able to comprehend. And, and so that's like, I mean, I was 12 when I came here, so my language acquisition was much easier, but to somebody who's 18 or 19, it's much more challenging. And can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did you magically improve on your English reading and writing? Because it's not just classes, like,
No, you gotta try to talk to people. Like, you gotta be immersed in the language. So you gotta, I guess that's the only time. Like, if you're, I would say, like, watch movies, read books, read like scientific essays, papers, like especially if you're going to the medical or grad school route, like reading science papers, it's such a pain. Like, it's so dense with information. It's not like a book that you can just read through them. Like, takes sometimes hours to still go through them for me now. And it's not about the English, it's about like being able to learn all that information in a different language that's what you're used to. One other thing I used to do that really helped me was writing, because you can listen a lot to people, talk to them, but like, for what's gonna help with your application is your writing skills. Because if you don't make it through the application, you're never gonna get an interview. And in an interview, like, they can see your personality and all that. So if you're not speaking the language, they can have some sense of, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He might not just like struggling a little to talk, but that doesn't come through in an essay. That essay is just as text. And as somebody who's been on like scholarship committees and like admissions committee, like, it's hard to imagine what this person is like. you just have this page of text in front of you. So try, if you can, look up the prompts for the essays you're gonna write. Like the prompt for like the UC application, like those two questions have been the same for a million years. I don't think they're gonna ever changing. Look those up. Like the prompt for MCAS, like the medical school application, that's been the same for a long time. Secondary applications, there's like a million essays you have to write, but like these main ones that are your first like step to get in, because if you don't make that first step, you're never going to make it through the rest because you're dropped. So make sure you can start writing those essays. It might be very basic English, it might not have like, and also depends on the culture. Like in Iran, like we don't tell stories. Like I had to learn it here. Like you write an application for like why you have to be in grad school, you have to be like, yeah, like the story of like I was doing this, I was like, oh, it hit me, this is like, you got to paint a picture. Like that's not something that was in my upbringing, that wasn't in my culture. We're like straight shooters. Why do you want to go to grad school? Because I want to do cancer research, I want to be a PhD student. Here you got to fluff it up with like anecdotes and like examples and show, like they're like show the work. Yeah, so that's something, I don't know how is Egypt's system, but like probably it's like more like around Middle Eastern style of your straight shooters. Like probably work on that, have your friends that are from here read them. They're usually counseling offices and community colleges, and when you go to a 4-year university, there are pre-med advisors, and everybody remembers them like their senior year when the applications due. And there's just so many people going through that process at the same time, and like you're not going to get the best, most of the best they have to offer you. But like if you think of it ahead of time, write some essay, bring it to them in August, in September when the semester is starting or the quarter starting, and like nobody's thinking about them or like how to plan like their application. Go to them, work on that essay, because the writing is the biggest thing, the most important skill to get into grad school, med school, and to succeed in like grad school, med school. Because like we write grants, we write scholarship applications, we write you write the essay for postdoc. If you want to become a postdoctoral fellow, if you want to become a resident, you write essays. For med school, but once summer rolls in and you're getting all these emails for secondary applications, and each of them make you write 6, 7, some of them 10, you're like, why are you asking me these random questions? But like many of them are random, honestly. I don't know what they do that. You got to be able to write and like think creatively and like work on that creative writing, because it's something that the American way of applications, like our way of admissions here, is very heavily reliant on that. So that's something, I think that's the main biggest like skill you can learn. Like you can have a terrible GPA and you write an essay kind of like explaining it, sometimes it flies. So yeah, that writing skill is very important.
I think.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, they were just asking, is honor classes required?
No, they're not, obviously not required.
But recommended.
I did it because for the person that was interested in UCLA back then, I don't know if it's still like that. There was no tag, there was no transfer admission guarantee, but if you took honors classes and you had to take so many, like a few, like 4 or 5 honors classes and pass them, and then you got like kind of certified by the honors program, and you had honors added to your transcript. They gave you an admission priority. There was no guarantee, but there was a priority. The main reason I did my honors was UCLA. Like that's what they had, and I think that's why they offered me the like the Regent Scholarship. That's like the most prestigious like scholarship that the UC system has to offer. My family was here, that's why I didn't go to UCLA. But yeah, if you're interested in UCLA, I would say look up if your community college is part of that transfer admission priority or whatever they call it. I remember it was a priority. They were like priority versus guarantee. UCLA was a priority thing. So definitely not required. If you can do it, gives you priority if they have a contract for admissions. If not, still you get that notation on your transcript and looks better. Usually it's just some extra essay, or there's no extra test. Usually it's like an extra project thing you do. That's the same content. So if you have the option and have the time, I'll recommend doing it. In medicine and pre-med, pre-grad, like any degree that you want to get that has a D in it, a doctorate, you want to do these extra things to say, like, I stand out, because the way the education system is designed, they want to drop people out. So if you want to make it to that level, you got to distinguish yourself somehow from the others.
What's something that you know now that you wish you would have known before you applied to a PhD program?
So first, I guess, was that when I was a lab tech, like the biggest thing is that it's a lot of pressure, but it's a little stressful when you're in charge of that project, when you're a staff researcher or like a work study, you're working on somebody else's project. When you're in grad school, this is your project. The only person responsible for it is you. And you're not there on your own, but you have to think and ask people for help. Nobody's going to come offer you help. Like if you need help, you go to your advisor. I need help with this. You have an advisor who check on you. Depends on the different advisors and whatever, how often they check on the students. But like, it is a lot of like, it's like running your kind of like a mini startup. Like you have to manage yourself and all the stuff that's happening with this project and who you're working with, and like how much do you want to work with somebody, and like because it's also about sharing credit and all that. That's that. Second thing I would say, when I was in Berkeley, like mostly I was very worried about my GPA, and like kind of lost a lot of hair in Berkeley. At the end of the day, it matters, but it doesn't, like, it's, back then I thought like this is the only thing I have, because it's like a number that kind of gives you a value. Like, no, it's not the only thing. It's one of the main things, but it's not the only thing that defines you. So if there's a hiccup somewhere, don't panic, don't give up and be like, yeah, no, I can't do it anymore. Work harder. You will make up for it somewhere else. Yeah.
Someone asked, any tips for a student on what elements make a good research abstract and strong research poster?
So an abstract, you obviously has to be an abstract. Some abstracts are like so long, it's not an abstract anymore. And you want to first, I think if you Google it, there's like a little like Stanford, like they sent us, we have like our first year, like a class that they teach you how to do these. And I think they took some screenshots somewhere from internet. It shows you the different things you have to have in an abstract. Like the first part is like the hook. Like, why is it important? Like if you're reading any cancer abstract, is like always like, oh my God, everybody's dying from cancer. This is the most important cancer. Like you're gonna die from this cancer, kind of type of thing. And then you state some known facts very briefly, because you want to walk your reader, your audience, to get to the point that why did you come up with this question? Why this question is important? And you're like, okay, this thing has been shown to do this, this, and that, and then somebody else showed this and that, and if you put these together, there's this big question that is not answered. And based on these things that we did, we hypothesized that it was this thing. And here are like a summary of results, like 3 sentences. We found that this protein is important for this. If we block this protein or knock it out genetically, like it blocks the growth of these, whatever, like you want like some clear results. Sometimes I've read abstract and it's just like, cancer is bad, I cured cancer type of thing. I'm like, you didn't. And you wanna end on restating the importance of this research. Like it can be further like utilized by physicians in the clinic or whatever. So that's for the abstract. Poster, my biggest recommendation is don't put too much words on it. Nobody's gonna stand there next to you reading these words. Like it's just the most awkward thing. Like write a good abstract. That's what people are gonna read. And if they're interested, they would stand there and talk to you about your poster. Put pictures, put representative pictures, be creative about the picture. Like, I don't know, some people have like these very elaborate and complicated experimental designs. Make a workflow like a figure instead of telling them like in this long column what you did. Tell them in a picture what you did. The results should be like mostly pictures, but make sure all the pictures like have like a legend. So people sometimes you're interested in the poster and you're like lost what's going on. Put that there, and usually pictures like it would attract more people. It's less intimidating. People come close by and look at it, and yeah. So posters, don't put that many words, and a good abstract and some good legends, you'll be golden.
Someone asked how important is the ACT or the SAT as a CC transfer to Stanford?
So we just literally like at 3 to right before this session, we had the Dean of Admission from Stanford undergraduate. So that video is going to be posted on YouTube. But just to answer that question, it's Stanford is text optional for community college transfer students. So but we're going to post that video and you can go watch the whole hour and a half of actually almost 2 hours of that. So yeah. So I don't want to put Dr.
No, I was just gonna say like I applied, I didn't get in. Like I'm not the right person to ask.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? He just said the story of we have a lot of people that applied to Stanford, and one of them is Dr. Fire. He's like he applied as an undergraduate, didn't get in, went to Berkeley and applied for a PhD, didn't get in, and then went to a couple other places, and then came here and then won the Nobel Prize. And so, hey, you don't get any, maybe you could win the Nobel Prize. I don't know. But.
Yeah, he's the most. I took a class with him. He's the nicest guy. Like Andy Fire, he's like very down to earth. Like you will see him walking around, like, oh yeah, this guy's Nobel Prize is walking down the hallway. Anyways, yeah, don't give up. He has a Nobel Prize, and he didn't
so you applied as a transfer student and didn't get in. See?
Yeah. No, I didn't get any of the private universities I applied to. I did Stanford, Princeton, Harvard. I didn't get any of them, so I'm like, I'm absolutely not the right person to answer that question.
But hey, you got a full funded research PhD, so hey.
Yeah, I finally made it here. Yeah.
Not bad. Does anybody have any questions? Because if you don't, I have to go to work. So, and I'm sure Dr. Shamardani has other things to do, like go run some.
I gotta go have lunch. I didn't get to have lunch. I was like busy doing an experiment that we had to wear gloves and everything. There was no breaks, and you couldn't eat in that room. So, yeah, I'm gonna have a very late lunch at 7 p.m.
Hospital, volunteering for hospital. I don't know what you mean by that. The other thing is, the one thing though, we have like over 30 deans of admission that have spoken about medical school admission. So I think you could probably go watch all those on YouTube. I don't understand like a volunteering question for getting a PhD. Is that the question?
Yeah, I don't know if is volunteering hospital required for PhDs? Not. I don't know if for MDs almost everybody does it. So I don't know if it's some schools require it. I think I know Utah I think had a requirement or something when I was looking before. But it's very different. It's different by school by school by school.
All righty. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight, and have fun at doing dinner.